Hello everyone, and welcome to This Nintendo Life. My name is NBZ. We're here at episode 56. It's the last show of the year, Bali. Can you believe it?
It's very emotional.
I know, so many tears have been shed. Star Wars has happened.
Oh!
It's been a roller coaster of a ride, Bali.
Yeah. Have you had a good Christmas?
I have, yeah, it was pretty fun. Lots of family stuff going on, not much time for much else. I know you've been out to see Star Wars a few times. I've only had the one opportunity when we saw it together, which was...
I think I'm going to go for 5.
You're kind of crazy, Bally. You really are. But, you know, this is...
I don't know, it's got to match episode 1, you know?
Exactly, that's what we did back in the day. So we've got to match up to that. And I think we're going to do a different thing where we talk about Star Wars on its own. We might put it up on this podcast feed, but it'll go up on my YouTube channel, so that'll be a thing that'll happen later. But Bali, as much as I love video games, I think Star Wars is my favorite thing this year, like generally.
It's pretty great. Like
yeah.
It's a lot better than I thought it would be, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I don't know, here's the thing. We're the kind of people who I don't think we're going to be disappointed because we love the prequels and like no one else does. So, oh well. Anyway, yes, enough about the Star Wars chat. I'm sure we'll get to that at a point in the future. For now, it's Nintendo, Bally. It's video games. It's Game of the Year. Today is the day that Giant Bomb's Game of the Year starts at the time of recording, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to have our own stuff. So, yeah, tell the people at home what we're going to be listening to today.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about what we've been playing. And then this year, for our Game of the Year, we decided, seeing as we did our top 50 games of all time earlier this year, where, you know, we came up with one list between the two of us, we decided, you know, let's do that for Game of the Year. You know, we can debate it out, get a top 5 that represents both of us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people responded positively to the top 50 stuff. That was a lot of fun to record as well. And there's a lot more kind of realness that comes out in those discussions.
Oh yeah, it's heated. It is heated.
Yeah, so it's a fun time, and that's what we're going to be doing for this year. So look forward to that at the end of the show. But before we get into that, we are going to just talk about the things we've been playing. Bally, it's been Xenoblade month, I feel, for the both of us. I've unfortunately had to cut my time with it short because I came down to London and I didn't bring my Wii U with me. But I'm basically at the end of the game at this point. I've gone through it very quickly, and I think it was because I was coming down to London that by the time I hit around 55 hours, I was into chapter 12, which is the last chapter in the game. And there's other stuff still. There's obviously loads of side quests and things, but I pushed through, and I'm pretty much at the end. But I want to check in with you and see what you think, how your feelings have evolved on Xenoblade. So how's it going?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of chapter 3.
Okay.
So much earlier on. I'm about 15 hours into the game, maybe. I feel like I have done a considerable amount of exploring for that game time.
Okay.
Where I should have written down these continent names. I'm really struggling with these. Right. So it's Noctilum.
Noctilum, yes.
And Oblivia.
Correct.
I don't know which one's which.
Oblivia is the deserty one. Noctilum is the forest one.
So I've been to both of those continents now, and I thought I got really lost looking for Noctilum. And I was just swimming and couldn't find anything. And then later, when I started Chapter 3, I was actually quite surprised that Chapter 3 takes you to Noctilum. Like, I felt that was quite early. And partly because it feels like there's just so much more of Primordia that I've just not seen or done anything in. And then the game's already dragging you out to this faraway continent. It's a bit crazy. But
yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that many of these areas are extremely vertical, and as a result, it leaves a lot to be unexplored for when you progress in the game and get the ability to have a scale, and thus much greater movement is applied. And so it's interesting because it allows dimensions of the world to be left for later, so even though you're in a familiar setting, you still have new things to explore, which I think is pretty neat.
And that's like... I'm just absolutely loving the exploration. I can't emphasize that enough, just how incredible it looks, and like you feel so small and insignificant, and there, like you said, there's just this huge verticality, huge mountains, especially in Primordia, but also I'd say Oblivia's got a lot of multi-level. It's all got multi-level, but you just feel so small. And like I'm at home just now, so I'm using the main family TV, and my parents will be walking in, come out, they can like see what's going on, and like my mum just randomly walked in and just goes, "Wow, that looks amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, it does, Mum. Yeah, it does." Because this is a Xenoblade, and it's really good. And like, and then later my dad was there, and like I was explaining to him like, "So this is New LA," and he's like, "All right." And I kept saying open world to him, and I don't think he really understood what that meant. And I
Right.
think he thought that running around inside New LA was open world.
Mm.
And then like 20 minutes later, I was like right at I was in the sort of northwest tip of Primordia, just on the border with Noctilum, and I said, "Hey, Dad," like, and I got my character to turn around, and then like you can see New LA way off in the distance. I'm like, "Yeah, that's New LA." And he's like, "Whoa!" Like that is absolutely huge, and
Yeah.
it's just that scale is just so much fun to run around, and it looks really great. And that is my number one improvement of this game versus Xenoblade Chronicles, is that it's more of a joy to just run around and explore, especially for me with the map and everything, like I've explained before in the podcast. But like, it's just so well implemented. And I would say that I don't fully understand probes, and it's a bit confusing as to which probe you should lay down at each spot.
Right.
But it's still such a joy to, find those sites and lay down probes.
Yeah, I think that really has been a focus here is obviously in the original you're getting experience points for exploring places and that still happens, but I don't think the reward is as great. You're not getting as many experience points for finding new locations. It's much more of a focus on, okay, it's almost like a puzzle to figure out how to get to a probe spot, because if you're close
Yeah.
enough, you can kind of see the light popping out of the ground, but you do need to be within a certain distance to even see that happening. And so a lot of the challenge is like figuring out the terrain and figuring out whether there is a way for you to get up there at your current point in time. And that's almost a game in itself. It's like it is like almost being out in the wilds of, the real world and thinking, okay, I'm climbing this hill. How do I get to that point? I need to take this path and go around there. And it really becomes just a huge focus. And for me, a lot of the time was I wasn't necessarily going out and doing quests when I was in the open world. I was like, okay, my focus right now is to just explore as much of this region as possible and go from probe to probe and get fast points down. Do you find that you're always like focusing on some sort of quest, or are you going out into the world with like not really any aim at points?
I like to kind of collect a few mini missions, go out and do a story mission. Sorry, and then while I'm out there, I might have done the story mission thing or the mini mission I have to do, but then you always have to come back to New LA. So before coming back to New LA, I'll just go for an explore. Like I
Yeah.
find, and it is like a really enjoyable gaming loop. And then when you're back in ULA, obviously you can buy like better equipment. You can try
Mhm.
and do. I need to do more of that kind of weapons manufacturing
Yeah, so
thing.
have you found that stuff? I know there's like you need to read a lot of manuals for all these things, but there's all the arts and leveling up the arts. There are skills, there are the classes. Has it been a bit overwhelming, or are you getting a
E-
handle on it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've got a handle on everything I need to get a handle of so far. And I think having played Chronicles, I feel like I know enough about the arts and leveling up arts through battle points and that whole battle system thing. I think I'm on top of that. I have no idea about weapons manufacturers, and that's like another thing I need to get on top of. And I said before how I didn't know what probes to put where. The game kind of helps you, but then doesn't help you. So it explains that, oh yeah, you need to lay all these probes down on these hexes, and then if you change them all to mining, they'll link together and they'll mine extra. And it's like, that's great, but what's the benefit of mining? Or like, why mine rather than, what's the other one that does like, what's it
Just
called?
make money,
Yeah,
basically.
make money, or like why choose one over the other? And the game, like, maybe it tells me later, but it just really doesn't it always tells you a fraction of what you need to know, and it is really frustrating.
Right, like the
Um,
lack of exploration on every front is just like it's kind of mind-boggling because the game is so deep and complicated that you need them to lay it out for you, and they just don't. They just say, "Okay, here's a thing you kind of maybe you might want to do," and there'll be a point later in the game where one of the quests, I think this is associated with getting your first Skell, is you have to make sure you're bringing in a total of 15,000 Moranium every time it ticks over, essentially.
hmm.
And if you don't know how to set up probes correctly and get all the storage stuff and boosters all in a row, then you're going to have a really tough time being able to get that. And if the game, it doesn't lay it out for you, like even going into the manuals, it doesn't tell you like, okay, you should like find this sort of setup and this is the best one to chain together. So it leaves you, without much really to do on that front.
Yeah, it's just really weird, and it is really frustrating because probes seem to be quite an important part of the game.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't know, the story really hasn't picked up for me yet, and I am just sort of waxing lyrical about the exploration, and I feel like I know that the story will pick up, but I still don't feel that invested in it.
no.
But I'm kind of okay with that, and I'm almost getting to this point where if you took the best parts of Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade X, you could have a pretty epic game. And
You
like
could do, yes.
I'm talking about, the story and music from Chronicles, but then the exploration and map design of X.
So yeah, on that point then, music-wise, have you found that you're liking a lot of these tunes, or are they becoming a little annoying? Because I know on RFN they had the complaints about like in New LA
Yeah,
and like the rap stuff in the background. There's a lot of the battle music has lyrics in it, which is weird. I kind of like the battle music. It's not amazing, but I think it fits for what they're going for.
I think the music's pretty good. I really liked what the theme in Oblivia.
Yeah,
Like I think some of those tunes are really good, and I like the general Primordia orchestral sound. Like I do like that a lot.
really, I think it's any of the music that doesn't contain lyrics is the most similar to the original Xenoblade in terms of tone and in terms of feel and everything. For me, the main music of Noctilum is fucking fantastic. That's my favorite music in the game. And I'm not sure you've got deep enough yet to hear that,
Yeah,
but when you do, I'm sure you'll really like that stuff.
yeah, and I do agree with those who are just like the new LA music is kind of bad.
Yes.
It's I don't know. Is it like a Japanese take on what LA music sounds like or something?
Maybe,
And
who knows?
they've just kind of misjudged it. It's like yeah, they like rapping and making sounds like yeah, and then it just repeats that again and again. It's yeah, it's really not. It's a shame because you're in New LA so often, and
Mm.
like you're running down. You've just been on some massive mission. You're running down like the tunnel entrance or whatever, and you just hear like yeah, yeah, and it's just a bit weird.
It is a bit weird, but I don't know. Not everything that was perfection in the original Xenoblade can be recreated. Like it's very hard to recapture what that game did in
It is
terms
just
of
so
music.
different. It is way more different than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, it's like it. The thing is, like, it retains those core aspects that I love, which are the incredible looking world and the exploration elements, and then takes much more risks on other things, like really not focusing on the story and having side stuff be something that you do much more of. Have you done any affinity quests yet? Like, because
Not
I think
yet.
for me those are the most interesting. They have a lot of dialogue and spoken voice acting, and so they feel more like actual story stuff. It feels like a lot more love has gone into those.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I need to try those out, and they do sound quite cool, like having their own cutscenes and stuff like that.
I think my one problem with Affinity missions is they have a restriction on what number of hearts you need to have between you and that particular party member. And the issue here is there are so many different party members that you can pick up along the way, and they don't level up when you're away from them. So essentially, like, they can sit there at level 15 for the whole of the game. You can get to like level 40 and they're just completely out of it. But if you want to do this one affinity mission, they have to be part of your team, and you have to have got their heart level to like 2 or something. And the only way to get their heart level up is to have you in your group for the whole time to like get their affinity like closer to you. And it's just really slow. There's no fast pass to build affinity. In the original Xenoblade, you could gift stuff between characters to build affinity faster, which made it a lot easier. But this game just doesn't have that. Like, you just need to keep them there forever. And there's also certain characters which have participation in the story, and there are points at which you cannot use them at all. And so I made the mistake of using 2 characters in particular that are like really key to the story, and there is one mission later on in the game that is pretty tough, has a hard boss fight at the end, and I wasn't able to use either of them as my 4th party member. And so I had to go around and find some other random person. So maybe, Bally, I'll give you some tips off screen as to who you want to focus on as that 4th party member. Is there someone you have with you at the moment that you're using?
So what happens? I have no idea how this works. So I just
Okay.
randomly bumped into people while out exploring in like Primordia or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got them into my party, and then they just sort of hung about for a little while, and then they vanished.
Okay.
Like, why do they vanish?
I don't know if you're particularly talking about someone who is like an active party member. Did they fight in battles with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, some of them are like very early on. I think Irina and Gwyn are 2 of the first ones you meet, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who those
God
people
damn it, Bally! You and Dames. Oh, Jesus. But yeah, there are party members early on that they throw into you as your 4th one. You can basically go back to New LA, and on the map there, it will tell you where they hang out, and so you can go and find them and then recruit them into your party again. So you can keep rotating people out and having different people in there. But yeah, as I said, it's not like the original where they all level up together. They level up independently of one another, and I built up affinity with one character in particular who ends up like basically not being usable for a lot of the game, and as a result, like, I just had to switch courses halfway through, which I understand that they want to make it organic and like surprising that, you know, something's going to occur in the storyline that involves a character that is usable, but it's also super fucking frustrating when you've like focused on them and bought them armor and leveled up their skills and got their class. Like, it seems like a little bit of a misstep there, which is unfortunate. But I do feel that later on in the game it is a lot easier to get levels, and especially when you have your scale, you have much more agency in terms of taking on high level enemies. There's one point in particular that I found where I could fast travel to this area at night in Primordia, and I was around level 35. I had 4 scales, and there's this giant scorpion that's level 51. And I'd spec'd out my scale in such a way that I had a specific art that was this massive scythe that deals like real good damage melee, and does like, you know, basically takes off a bunch of HP. And I also had a skill assigned to my character, which meant that if I attacked from behind, it did 125% of your normal damage. So I would basically spawn here, be behind the scorpion, and start off the battle with this scythe move, and I would take off 50% of this enemy's health. And keep in mind, I'm like 15 levels lower than this thing, and I'm still doing that much damage. And I was basically cleaning house with this guy continually. So I went from, like, in the matter of only like less than an hour, I went from level 30, 35 to like 40, 43 or something. And it just like, it kind of destroyed the leveling curve in a sense. And that's kind of why I'm at 55 hours into the game and have already almost beaten it, because there are definitely much easier grinding spots in here. And I think that's very favorable, honestly, because for me, grinding is something that in Xenoblade was more of a chore than anything else, and it just took a bunch of time to prepare for that final battle, and I wish there was more kind of story stuff to lead you up to be the right level at that point, and unfortunately there just wasn't. So it was just hours and hours of fighting the same things again and again and again, and, you know, you're not really getting much out of it. So the ability to kind of break the leveling system, I found actually to be a nice thing, and it kind of avoids a lot of unnecessary grinding. So,
I mean, I'm only 15 hours in, and you, like you said, you're 55 or whatever, and at the end of the game, I'm sure a lot of people listening might be closer to my playtime than yours, perhaps.
Probably,
So,
yes.
like, between my sort of playtime and the end of the game, like, what are the top few things that like I should either like look out for, or I need to do, or I should read up on,
Okay. I
or
think
everything?
so. One thing that you definitely want to do is there's a particular party member who I just mentioned before called Gwyn, who's one of the first ones you get access to. There is a mission that you have to complete in order to unlock one of the main story chapters, but that mission requires that you have at least one heart affinity with Gwyn. Make sure that you bring Gwyn into your party and use him for enough time to build up that affinity, because otherwise you're going to get to the story chapter and you're going to have to just take this character who you might have left on the sidelines for the whole game, and he could be down at like level 10 and you're like level 35, and it's just going to be a pain in the ass basically to build up his affinity. So as soon as possible, use Gwyn and get his heart thing up to at least level 1. That's like a big
Okay.
thing for later on. I think you definitely want to save up your cash. You don't want to be spending a bunch of money on gear and equipment like super often, because number one, you're going to find a lot of stuff in the open world that will do the same thing as anything that you buy in the shops, and secondly, when it gets to a point in time where you want to have a lot of scales, they're pretty expensive, and you want to be able to afford a lot of them. Was able to buy 3 at once because I basically saved up my cash and I was able to get them all. But you also need to keep in mind that scales also have equipment that they need, which costs even more money. So make sure you're saving and make sure you're not kind of spending, flippantly. Another thing is Moranium. So Moranium is the thing that you get from probe sites. It's basically the main thing from mining probes, and that is used for a couple of things. You can use it in some side quests to help people, just give them a bunch of Moranium for whatever. But it is also used for your Skell later on. It uses up fuel, or you can use it to buy fuel if you're running out of it, although that's not something you need to worry until late game. But the main thing you want Moranium for is to invest into the arms manufacturers. And these are basically different people who will give you different gear throughout the game, and they open up kind of the shop and stuff. The Moranium stuff will build up to a cap, and once it's built up to the cap, you don't get any more because you have a certain amount you can store at a single time. So what you want to do is always keep an eye on how much Moranium you have, then go to an arms dealer, spend all of your Moranium, and then let it build up again. Because if you're just leaving it at the max amount the entire time, you're not getting anything.
That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Right, you're not getting anything. It's just staying, and you're
Yeah.
not generating more Moranium. So as soon as you hit the max amount, get rid of it so you have more space to build up more of it, because it is pretty key throughout the rest of the game. And yeah, aside from that, I don't know there's much more that you need to super worry about. I would definitely recommend getting yourself a bit higher level than you think you need to be, because when you're locked into a story mission, you can't do any other affinity stuff. That's the problem I have, is like it locks you out of doing a lot of other things if you're in a story or an affinity mission, and it can be problematic at times. You're like, for fuck's sake, like I need to be a high level here. I'd really like to get some more experience, but as I said, like there are ways once you have your scale to level up faster, so it's not as bad a time. But yeah, we still haven't really talked about the combat though. I think there's a lot of similarities between this game and the original. Have you found the combat more engaging, Bally, or do you feel it's pretty similar to Xenoblade?
It's quite similar. It feels a bit strange not having Monado arts.
Right.
I mean, I'm just using my main dude, and I just sort of have my stock, 5 or 6 arts that I know what they do, and I use
Mm-hmm.
them a lot. And I don't really know enough about the arts of my other party members, so a bit more knowledge on which of their arts to level up might be handy. And certainly, I feel like my other party members are learning a lot more arts than I am.
Mm.
So maybe I could select better ones for them to have, because at the moment I'm just kind of doing the stock, whatever
Right.
they were given at the start. So I should really like look into that more.
Have you leveled up your class yet? Are you still the base drifter class? Because when you hit level 10 in a class, it lets you change it to the new one, and then you can start leveling that stuff up.
I don't know.
Okay, well, you should probably check that and
Okay.
see, because when you hit level 10 in your class level, if you go into the class menu, it'll say, okay, it forks like one of three ways, and you can take any of those paths down. And the annoying thing is when you change class, you have to start over with all of your arts. You'll only have like two arts to begin with when you change your class, and as you level your class level up, you'll get more as you go along. But it helps because it basically gives you more slots for skills, and you can unlock better skills, like the one that I had, which gives you like much better damage if you do melee hits from behind.
All right. Yeah.
So those skills are kind of they become important later on. For me, the combat system has been, I feel, much more engaging because of the soul voice stuff. And I think a lot of people are complaining about having to hit B perfectly for that quick time eventy stuff, and it is annoying because you always have to like have your finger or your thumb over the B button just in case it randomly pops up, because a lot of the time it doesn't feel like there's much rhyme or reason to when it's appearing.
That's true. Yeah.
And you can fail, and like that sucks because it really puts you on the back foot, because that's how you heal in this game, is getting that quick time event. It's a little annoying, but the stuff with soul voices, like when your party members are calling out and it starts flashing, it makes you want to kind of save stuff. Like, instead of going in there and just spamming arts, like not even thinking about it, you're thinking, okay, I can use this art, and then hopefully, because I have another art of that color, if someone calls it out, I still have an option to use that and get a bonus for it. So it makes me think about that stuff a little more critically and be like, okay, maybe I should be a bit more patient here. Sometimes it's best to just go all out, and if you have certain arts that kind of chain together, like something that staggers someone that you can then topple them because that's still in the game, that's nice, and then you can get them on the floor with certain different things. But for the most part, I've really liked how the combat has worked, and it's pretty good when you get a Skell, because it changes things completely, and you feel like a ridiculously overpowered crazy person. So yeah, I mean, Bally, there's still myriad problems with Xenoblade, but I know you're still enjoying it so far.
Yeah. I am really liking it. Like I kind of just really got into it like yesterday. Like
Mm.
I always start out like, this feels a bit of a chore. Like I need to learn this. What am I doing? I need to buy that. And then as you kind of, once I've got my sort of setup going and I've got my kit, and then I go out and explore, like that's where the game really rewards you, I find, and
Yeah.
it's just such a joy to play. Um, so much more so than the first game in so many ways. That kind of just going out and exploring. But I don't have that same excitement about the cutscenes, I guess. But I've already said that. But
Yeah, I think it's chapter 5 is when there's the first big story thing, and that was when I was like, oh, that's cool, and it pushed me forward a bit. Overall, I tend to agree with most people that the story isn't great, and it hasn't done much for me, but there's certainly motivation there, and you'll certainly feel like wanting to know a bit more when you hit kind of the chapter 5 point. So I'd say,
mm,
hang on until then, and you'll enjoy it going forward. All right, is there anything else you've been playing, Bally, aside from Xenoblade?
not really. I've been playing a tiny bit of fast racing Neo, but I'll
Hmm.
probably talk more about that next time.
Okay, cool. Bally, if you've been following along with my Twitter and stuff, people listening, have been trying this year to defeat, or should I say beat, a total of 52 video games. This is a challenge that pops up on NeoGAF every year. And I decided that this year, at the start, I was going to try and do it, because last year I managed to beat about 40, and I thought, maybe I could probably push through here and do 52. Doesn't seem unmanageable. That basically means that I have to beat a game every week on average. Now, it doesn't mean I have to do that consistently throughout the year. Like, there can be times where I beat a bunch and get ahead of the game. And that's kind of what happened, because, like, when I went back to uni, I did not have as much time and therefore wasn't playing as many, which means it really came down to the wire here, Bally. And that's why I was pushing for Xenoblade before I came down to London. It was like, oh god, if I do this, then I've got 52 games and I'm done. but I didn't. Like, I got very close to the end, and the final boss is bullshit, and we'll talk about that probably later on when we talk about Xenoblade. Next year in 2016. God, yeah, 2016. Jesus Christ. So I needed another game for my 52nd, and so I thought I need something short, I need something quick, and I decided to start off on a game that is on Steam that I'd had for a long time. It's called Costume Quest. Costume Quest is kind of a Halloween-themed little game from Double Fine, the creators of Broken Age, which was the big Kickstarter that they did. They do lots of adventure gamey stuff, and Tim Schafer is the big head honcho over there. And Costume Quest is essentially this little mini RPG that's based around Halloween, where you can choose to play either as one of, I think they're twins, I'm not sure, but they're a brother and sister, and one of them gets kidnapped by some monsters, and you basically have to go around, and you have these Halloween costumes on, but when you get into battles, the Halloween costumes basically transform as if they were the real thing. So the girl who I played as started out with this kind of robot costume, and in the battle, she like transforms into an enormous like transformer like massive robot, and it looks really cool, and there are a bunch of different costumes throughout the game. You have like 2 or 3 party members with you, and yeah, it's not very complicated. The battle system is very simple. It's kind of Mario and Luigi-esque in the sense that in order to pull off a move to do extra damage, you have to get like timing based stuff, so you have to hit a button at the right time when you're attacking, and the same when you're defending. It'll be like prop up a thing and press B to defend at the right time, and you won't take as much damage and that sort of stuff. So it's really simple. It never gets too tough. I think I only died like a couple of times throughout the game. Very simple, very neat little cute aesthetic, and it has pretty funny writing as well. I actually really liked it. There's no voice acting; it's all written dialogue, but it's well written and it's entertaining. And yeah, I had a good time with it. I don't know. There's really much to say about it. It's 5 hours long, and I think there's some value there. Like, I played Evoland earlier this year and kind of talked about how the gimmick there was the whole, like, evolving through the generations. There's not really anything like that here, but I do appreciate that someone can take the concept of an RPG, which is usually this, like, mammoth of a thing that just spams forever and ever, and just boil it down to its essences and just, have this little 5-hour experience. And that's what I did, beat Costume Quest, and I have now finished 52 games
52.
in 2015, Bally. I don't think I'm going to try and do it again. It's just one of those things that I just wanted to do once at least in my life. I thought I could do it, and I managed to accomplish that feat. So
I think I maybe completed between about 20 and 30 games this year or something.
I feel like maybe you're closer to the 30 end. You'd maybe have to check your backlog and see, but
wow,
yeah.
52. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm kind of shocked myself that I managed to do it, but hey,
some of those are really long as well.
Right, so that includes like 55 hours of Persona 4, that includes 80 hours of The Witcher, includes 55 hours of Metal Gear Solid 5, and up to this point in time, 55 hours of Xenoblade. So it's not like I was just picking short games this year, Bally. Like, I spent a lot of time with a lot of different really big titles. So I still managed to beat 52 of them, which shocks me, but I'm also happy that I managed to achieve it. So there you go. There's a thing ticked off the bucket list. And I think that's going to just about do it for our segment here. But you will want to not go anywhere, because after the break, we're going to be coming back with 2015 Game of the Year stuff. It'll be heated, it'll be fun, it'll be a good time. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Alright everyone, welcome back to the show. We are going to do our Game of the Year stuff now. It's all happening. Before we do that, we're going to do the emails that you sent to us about your 2015 Game of the Years. Last time we had our top 10 that didn't actually come out in 2015, and this time it's all about the current. So, Bally, we have a bunch of people who have sent us their top picks. Where are we going to begin?
We've got Paul, who says, "Hey guys, well, it's been a great year. Wanted to send you my top games of the year. I've omitted remakes including Rare Replay, Xenoblade Chronicles, and Majora's Mask. I only did 8 because I played a lot of remakes this year and I couldn't neglect Box Boy and Chariot by lopping it off to 5. So number 8, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. Number 7, Chariot. Number 6, Box Boy. Number 5, Yoshi's Woolly World. Number 4, Year Walk. Number 3, Super Mario Maker. Number 2, Splatoon. Number 1, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Cheers, guys."
Alright, that's a cool list there. That makes sense, you know, considering Nintendo's output this year. Chariot is an interesting one. I have seen some gameplay of it. It's this kind of multiplayer co-op thing. I don't know if I'm super interested in it. Yeah, it involves like 2 players. Like you have a string that you attach to this chariot, and you have to kind of carry it around levels and do puzzles with it and stuff. And it seems neat. But I don't know. It's not really on my radar. Year Walk, I think, is a game that came out on mobile last year, but came to Wii U this year. I don't actually know that much about it, but it's at number 4 on his list, so it must be pretty interesting. So, thanks, Paul. Nice list you sent us there.
We've also got Wilson from Perth, Australia. "Dear MZ and Bally, I didn't get to play many new games this year, but Downwell really caught my undivided attention when Giant Bomb talked about it. It's so much fun to play, and it is actually not bad on mobile as well as PC. Another game that came out this year which really surprised me with how good it was Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. I've enjoyed the first and second generations of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but had a break until this one, and it's actually got a lot of depth. The systems used make it much more challenging than a normal Pokemon game played the normal way, and it's interesting to make the most of different items and other mechanics. Thanks for a great show."
Well, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is something that I never want to touch in my lifetime, Bally.
Because of one man.
Because of one man, Mr. James Jones. Yeah, I just, you know, I've given up on Pokemon for the most part, and these games just sound like this horrible roguelike dungeon crawling nonsense that I just don't want to even give the time of day, if I'm perfectly honest, Bally. I just...
I mean, I've been talking on the show for a while now about playing Pokemon X or Y.
Yeah.
And that's something that I need to make happen in 2016, actually. But,
they're good video games, those video games.
But I am a bit scared because of James Jones to ever touch Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
It sounds like a hellscape that no one wants to enter into, and I'd really rather not. But Downwell, he mentioned, which I've had my eye on for a while. I first heard about it from Giant Bomb as well, but I was watching on Professional Fridays, and Drew Scanlon was playing the mobile version of Downwell, which is... It looks really cool. It's like an endless runner, but you're like falling down a well, and your boots have guns on them essentially, and you're like shooting stuff as you fall down. It's available on PC as well, so I would much rather play it there, and it's actually down to like £1.30 in the Steam sale right now, so I'm probably going to pick that up, and I will probably play that in 2016. But
cool.
Yeah, glad to hear that Wilson really enjoyed it. It seems like a neat one. I think Jim Sterling actually picked it for one of his top games of the year recently, so yeah, totally a cool pick.
We've also got Simon from the Netherlands. Number 5, Me Plaza, so like the Street Pass games. Street Pass Fishing, Zombies, Ultimate Angler, and Battleground Z.
Oh, so like the extra ones that you have to buy, yeah.
So they sort of clump them all together at number 5.
Interesting.
Number 4, Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. Number 3, Yoshi's Woolly World. Number 2, Splatoon. And number 1, Devil's Third.
Now, I don't know if Simon is trolling us here, or if he has some unique taste, but I'm not sure how anyone could make Devil's Third their game of the year. Each their own. Everyone has their own taste, of course.
I think maybe it spelt Mario Maker wrong.
Maybe that's what happened there.
It must be something like that.
Have you watched the Devil's Third quick look on Giant Bomb yet, Bally?
No, I really need to. And I take it Alex Navarro does it.
Yes, it's Alex who's tackling that one. It's actually not as terrible as people have been making it out to look, honestly. Like, from what I've seen, it's not actually that catastrophic. It just looks like the most uninspired, generic, boring thing I've seen, honestly, so... but hey, if Simon likes it, then he likes it. He also sent us a list last week, and in that list he included the critically panned Walking Dead Survival Instinct, which everyone seems to think is a piece of shit, but he likes it. So I don't know, Bally. Maybe
Each
he
to
just
their own.
maybe he just really enjoys the thrill of a terrible video game, or maybe he just likes the video game. It's each to their own. But there you go.
Yeah,
Devil's
exactly.
Third. I'm sure that's the only time that will come up in a Game of the Year list this year, but there you go.
And we've also got an email from Ben. Hey, MZ and Bally, finally sending my first email to the show. Anyway, my top 5 games of the year are number 5, Super Mario Maker, number 4, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D, number 3, Yokai Watch, number 2, Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, and number 1, Xenoblade Chronicles X. He goes on to talk a bit about each one. For only playing about 10 hours of Xenoblade X, all I can say is, wow, what a fantastic game. I can't wait to play more of it in 2016. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, despite some poor reviews and a slow start, was one of my favourite experiences on the 3DS. Yokai Watch is pure fun and charm. I absolutely love it. I truly felt immersed in the world. Majora's Mask 3D was a game I couldn't put down until I was finished with it. And finally, Mario Maker is and always will be a good time either to pick up and play or to spend countless hours on. Thank you guys.
Well, some more love for Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon here, Ballet, which...
What is going on?
It saddens me, but, people like what they like. Yokai Watch is one that I definitely am looking out for next year. I'm intrigued by it, and I'm not sure it's going to be anything mind-blowing, but it's a game I just want to play, just to know more about. It's more of a academic thing than anything else with Yokai Watch, but I'm very curious.
Have we found out yet that it's not the next Pokemon? Or
I
is
don't
it
know.
still up in the air, do you think?
I mean, it's only had one holiday season so far. I don't know how long it took Pokemon to really take off, but it seems to be doing okay. They've got a bundle with the 2DS, I think, with Yokai Watch, so that seems to be the target market there. What I will say is putting Xenoblade Chronicles X at number 1, having only played 10 hours of it, might be a bit premature. I think that you may find later that it may not stay at number 1 on your list the later you get into that game, but maybe it would. There's certainly a lot of people who have still kept it as their number 1, even though they played the whole thing. So
don't give away hints for the next part of the show.
No hints, of course.
No hints.
Yeah, good list. Thanks, Ben.
And finally, we've got Robert from New Jersey. Hey guys, thanks for keeping up with the podcast. Every new episode makes my commute to work more enjoyable. In terms of my personal game of the year, I'm going with Rocket League. I'll first point out that I hate traditional sports games. I don't really follow sports in general, so I have no real emotional connection to things like FIFA and NHL. But Rocket League is like a sport game wearing a Halloween costume. It's so innovative. The intricacies of how you can approach and strike the ball are so much more interesting than kicking a plain old soccer ball in FIFA. The rocket boosting adds another layer of depth, and it's much deeper than simply drive faster to move fast and hit the ball hard. Flying around and aerial hits are my favourite part of the game. Add to the mix the quick turnover of matches and you have a very fulfilling game that is easy for anyone to pick up and play and enjoy. And it's affordable, one third of the price of a AAA title, and yet it's just as enjoyable. Sometimes it's the simple but well executed games that are worthy of the title Game of the Year. Thanks again for the great podcast, guys.
Well, Bally, you actually played Rocket League this year as opposed to me.
Exactly, and this is Robert, who has admitted that he's not into sports, can't get immersed in any sports games, and he loves this game. And I feel like MBZ, you're not that immersed into these sports and sports games, so
Yeah.
it is just so great, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing it as well as watching other people play it. I watched a ton of Giant Bomb playing each other at this game, and it's just a great game, and yeah, like you said, really affordable.
Yeah, it's certainly doing pretty well on certain publications. I believe it was GameSpot's number 2 game of the year, behind The Witcher. So that's pretty impressive. And I think a lot of people are giving it nods, and those guys have been super successful. Apparently, the game was made on a budget of 2 million, and they have now made 50 million net profit or
Well,
whatever. So
there you go.
so yeah, they've done well for themselves. And
Soccer and cars.
yeah, who would have thought
Nailed it.
Who
Nailed
would have
it.
thought it? I definitely didn't see that
We need to
coming.
think of another combination. What could we do?
Oh, I don't know. Cricket and unicorns.
Jetpacks.
Yeah. Put all of them together.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, quickly here, Bally. You also have had a little bit of time with some other games that came out this year that I wanted you to talk about a little bit in the What We've Been Playing segment, but we went long on Xenoblade. So you managed to play a bit of Star Wars Battlefront, and you saw a bit of Fallout 4. Tell me a little bit about those.
So I was staying with my friends Alex and Shaq. Also, massive shout outs to Alex. I forgot to say this at the start of the show. So I was staying with them. And I left my hard drive with them, which made me completely Xenoblade-less.
Yes.
So very kindly, Alex sent up to Edinburgh my hard drive. So yeah, everyone who's listening has Alex to thank for this show going ahead, because
Indeed.
otherwise, poor old Bally wouldn't have been able to play any more Xenoblade, and that would have been a kind of disastrous Christmas. But
It would have been, yeah.
would have been terrible. But yeah, so I was staying with them. And my friend Shaq, he's a very, how do you describe, mainstream gamer. You know, he owns a PS4. He more often than not picks up the hotness. You know, so at the moment for him it's Fallout 4, and Star Wars Battlefront. So I watched him play a good chunk of Fallout 4. It looks really interesting. Like I can see the appeal. I think it looks surprisingly realistic. Like if you picture what a post-apocalyptic world looks like in terms of post-nuclear reactor explosion or whatever, like it's kind of realistic in a lot of ways. Like surely people would get like deformities, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a really vicious, armed, kind of world. But
It'd be a fucking hard world to live in, basically.
and it really does convey that in the way that you have to watch your level of radiation and these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. But I way preferred and was really excited by Star Wars Battlefront. I think that might be the best looking game I've ever seen.
Really?
I mean, I can't think of another game that, and like I mean good looking both in terms of photorealism and in terms of like just a great look, because it really pops when you see it in person. Like it is an absolutely incredible looking game, and it's really easy to pick up and play. Like I'm no first person shooter master. I mean, I've played a tiny bit of Halo and COD in the past. Obviously played a ton of Splatoon this year, but that's obviously a bit more third person.
And you're using motion controls.
And I'm using motion control, so this is your standard dual stick shooter, and it is just an absolute joy to play. I think that maybe if you're not a Star Wars fan, the mechanics are a bit maybe oversimplistic, and perhaps I know it's got some stuff like it's got a bit of auto aim and things like that. So
right, yeah.
So I don't know if that's. I don't think hardcore shooters like that aspect of it. But as like a casual shooter fan who's a massive Star Wars fan like myself, it was everything you could like ever wish for. Like it's really easy to just pick up and play, dive in. I didn't get a chance to play as like any of the heroes or villains. So obviously like Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han Solo, the Emperor, Boba Fett, and Vader are all playable characters. And I definitely watched my friend Shaq play quite a lot of those characters, and that was pretty entertaining. Like Luke is just wow. Like he runs faster than other characters, and like he's just. Oh, it's just so surreal, sort of seeing Vader and Luke, fighting it out in the middle of like Tatooine or whatever. That is a bit strange. It's also very strange seeing the Emperor running around. But it's
fucking hilarious more than anything. Is the Emperor and his weird twist through the air and like he just like looks like this gremlin or something, just like bobbing along. Yeah. It's hilarious.
And that's actually like a move he uses in Episode 3. He like does that twist through the air, but he's got his
he?
Yeah, he's got like his lightsaber drawn though, and he like when he first dives at like
right, he does to Yoda, or is it Mace Windu and Friends? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's the final fight with Yoda.
It might be.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Don't mean to go off on a hardcore Star Wars tangent,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, absolutely loved that game. I thought it was really cool. And yeah, if I owned a PS4, I'd definitely pick up a game like that because I love seeing. And I was just saying this to you before Amy said, but like the relationship between Star Wars and Nintendo has really sort of taken a turn for the worse since Factor 5. They were bought, or they ceased to exist, or they went
Yeah,
bust.
something along those lines. I can't actually remember
So
what
yeah, they
happened.
produced all the Rogue Squadron games. So I loved Rebel Strike games like Battle for Naboo on N64. These all used similar engines, and they were all canon Star Wars games that were just fantastic. Like I absolutely loved that style of game, and it's a real shame that Nintendo can't because those games were Nintendo exclusive
Mm.
on top of that, and now I don't know. I hope that Nintendo can do more to have Star Wars games that go beyond just Disney Infinity, which I don't know. One day I'm sure we might try Disney Infinity because
Those Force Awakens figures look real good, Bally. Not gonna
yeah,
lie. So.
and who doesn't love chunks of plastic?
Uh huh.
Yeah,
uh huh.
but I don't know. So yeah, I think it would be a shame in this new era of Star Wars for Star Wars is ultimately quite aim. It's a kids film for adults, and if
Right.
they can't have a solid Star Wars title beyond Disney Infinity on a Nintendo system, I'd be a bit disappointed. But
I
that
agree.
looks like the way it's going, unfortunately. But we'll see.
We'll see with NX. Who knows? If we can get ports of other stuff. But yeah, I actually played Battlefront earlier in the year when the beta came out, and I really enjoyed it. I had my time with it. But I think it's one of those games that I got my fill, and I don't have like this urge to go back to it. Like I played what I liked, and I enjoyed it for like 5 hours, and I was kind of done after that. So it's good, but I
I,
think maybe
and
a
I
little
feel like you
short-lived.
were maybe a little like that with Splatoon. Like you'd played your
I
sort
played
of
way more
quota.
Splatoon
That's
though. I
true.
think
That's
I
true.
played a lot of it and then kind of burned out a bit. But we should probably save that
Oh,
chat.
save opinions on those games. Save those
Indeed.
opinions.
So we should get out of here this email stuff. But thank you all for sending those in. Always great to see what
I
our
tell you
listeners
what.
are
I
playing.
tell you what. I'm going to put out a request.
All right.
I want you guys to send in your predictions for 2016 because I feel like we're gonna have a session of talking about our predictions from last year
Right.
and what's gonna happen going forward next show. So yeah, for episode 57, we want you to email in your predictions. So please send them to thisnintendolife@gmail.com.
Yes, the email address I forgot to pimp that at the start, but that's a good plan, Bally. We'll have some listener predictions, and maybe we can revisit those in 2017 when we get there eventually. Jesus.
We better
But
get
yeah,
there
that's
soon.
it's going to be this segment, and we'll be back at you in a little second with our game of the year. So don't go anywhere; you will not want to miss this. The time has come, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to discuss, to debate, to talk of the best games of 2015 that came out on Nintendo platforms. So no Star Wars Battlefront here, no Fallout 4, no Witcher 3. This is all Nintendo. This is all 3DS, all Wii U, and it's all fun times. So Bali,
Ugh,
it's
we're
time.
finally here.
We're finally here. We should say before we jump into it, you may want to stick around for the end of the show for a special announcement of some sort of kind. So
Hmm.
don't go anywhere because there'll be a
Special
thing.
announcement.
And we're not like RFN where we say it's a special announcement and then they announce that someone's leaving the show, which is the most horrible thing in the world. And they've done it twice now. I don't like
Yeah.
that. So
We're sticking around. We're sticking around.
we're sticking
Don't
around,
you
so don't worry.
Don't
there's
you
no
worry.
there's no wool being pulled over your eyes. So Bally, what are the games that are up for nomination for our top 5? Read out the list, will you please?
Here is the list of the games that we played this year that came out on Nintendo systems. They are Box Boy, Triforce Heroes, Codename Steam, Kirby Rainbow Curse, Gunman Clive 2, Yoshi's Woolly World, Splatoon, Captain Toad, Super Mario Maker, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Fast Racing Neo, and Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows.
I should also mention SteamWorld Heist has come out, and I have played a little bit of it, but we decided that I really have not done enough to be able to count it so far.
And we should also point out that Captain Toad came out this year in Europe.
It did.
And also to mention that we are counting Plague of Shadows, even though it's DLC, we see it as a whole new game.
Yeah.
So we're going to count that as well.
So we're going to count that. So, Bally, where do you want to begin here? Do you want to start cutting? Do you want to start throwing things
I think we should. I think so. I think we should cut stuff.
Okay. Should we nominate cuts?
Let's nominate a cut.
Okay. I'm going to
give it a noble exit.
Exactly. I'm going to nominate Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And the reason is, though I really did enjoy a lot of this game, I know you were the negative voice for most of the year about Yoshi's Woolly World. I had a great time with it, but I do think they outstayed its welcome. There's so many wonderful things about Yoshi's Woolly World. Like, it looks fucking gorgeous and has such a charming aesthetic, but when it came down to it, I don't think they did enough interesting with the gameplay to keep me hooked. And those levels are long, and they're kind of meandering, and by the end, you just kind of want it to be over, but the world just keeps, giving you levels, so...
Yeah, I feel like we've almost played too many 2D platformers, where in our minds, for a 2D platformer to really stand out, it really has to do something unbelievable and unique, a bit like Rayman Legends, I would say, that I played earlier this year. Like 2D platformers, certainly in my mind, and there are other 2D platformers on this list that are better, that just do more unique stuff. And Yoshi's Woolly World, don't get me wrong, looks amazing, plays really great, but just isn't doing enough that's unusual and cool, and that's really the bar.
Yeah, it's a hard year. There are a lot of really good games, and maybe at a time when, even last year probably Yoshi might have made it or squeezed onto a list, but I just don't think it cuts the mustard this time round. So it's our first cut. Yoshi's Woolly World is out of it. Let's delete that or exit that from the list.
I'm gonna take Fast Racing Neo and bow out.
Okay, fair enough.
I think this is a really, really great game. Like, it is hard as nails. I love that. I definitely do need to play more of this game. That's not the reason I'm taking out, but it's like F-Zero, but it's not F-Zero, in a number of ways. And I think most crucially, F-Zero, as much as, it had, specifically GX had like this story that is incredibly hard and very, and really divided fans, I think. I personally absolutely loved that story mode because it gave the game so much character.
Right.
And this game, in many ways, does feel ever so slightly soulless. And
yes,
maybe
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a knock against it, it feels like it doesn't have an identity of its own.
Precisely, and that's where F-Zero is so strong. And it's almost like F-Zero has done it subconsciously by having Captain Falcon as, the most tropey kind of outward spoken character in games like Smash Brothers, where you do build up an image in your head of the characters behind each car.
Right,
and, and that's something this game doesn't even attempt to do, which is
it just treats the cars as vehicles in their own right without any kind of human interact
So I
with
mean,
you.
I really don't want to be negative on this because this really does deserve to be like in this list. It's just not quite cutting it again. We're gonna keep saying that phrase. Not quite cutting it, but yeah, I absolutely love this game, but I'm still waiting for the day that F-Zero comes because I do think it does a few things that are a bit more fulfilling than this game is.
Yeah, I've not played as much as you have. I really enjoy it, but it's not my genre. It's not the sort of thing that I gravitate towards, and really I got it because it was a great price point, and I could also play online with you, and it also just, if I was ever to get into this kind of game, it's a great kind of jumping off point, I think.
Hmm.
And I've really been enjoying it, but I agree with you. I don't think it makes a top 5 of the year, unfortunate as that may be. It probably makes a top 10, but I don't think the top 5 is quite cutting it. Um, I am going to nominate Kirby Rainbow Curse. I'm going to take that one off myself. I know you haven't played it, Bally. I really do think that this game should have been a downloadable title. And I think they couldn't do that because what they did was spent all their cash making it look great. And then they forgot about the rest of it. Like, the level design just isn't as interesting as other Kirby games have been, and they take out a lot of things, like there's no Kirby power-ups. Like, when you knock into an enemy, you don't absorb anything. There's no depth or dimension to that stuff. Like, the hidden secrets aren't that interesting, and there are a lot of kind of random collectibles that don't feel fulfilling, like the stars and stuff. It's really enjoyable to look at, and it sounds great, but it's over too quickly, and it just doesn't do enough interesting. Although I would still recommend that you play it. I still would
Yeah, I'd
say,
be keen
as a
to.
fan of Canvas Curse, you do need to play this game at
Yeah,
some point.
and it only takes about 5 hours, you said, so
Yeah,
it's not too bad. Yeah.
yeah, not really a challenge, but I would have loved it if this had, because last E3, I think it was 2014 when they announced it. I was like fucking doing hula hoops, like fucking jumping over the
Yeah,
moon.
and then when it came out, it was kind of calmer. There wasn't that much excitement. I don't
It
know.
fell flat for sure.
Reviews weren't favorable either.
Yeah, Dan Reichert over at Giant Bomb, who I think has pretty good judgment calls when it comes to Nintendo stuff. He was not a fan of it, and I found that I tended to agree with him. So definitely worth like 15 quid or so, but I wouldn't go paying full price
Mm.
for this one for sure.
So now, in my mind, we're in the games that are just they're all really, really good.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so this is a really tough one, but I'm gonna go. Don't know if you agree with Captain
Okay.
Toad.
Yeah, I can take Captain Toad. Yeah,
And
I
like,
think.
it's so painful because I innovation deserves to be rewarded in this industry, especially innovation done well. And Captain Toad is oozing like innovation, and it's Nintendo going off script and doing something a bit out there and a bit different. And but it links back to 3D world, like using those assets. Like it's just so cool, and like I wish Nintendo were brave like that more often. And we're going to talk about innovation later on this list, I'm sure. But this
Uh
is
huh.
just a really, really cool game. And I meant to go back to this to try and collect some of the extra collectibles, and didn't have a chance, unfortunately. But it's definitely something I'd like to do. And I'd love to see like a second one on 3DS or
Absolutely.
some take on this genre because I just love the idea of it's kind of 3D puzzle platforming in the way. It's really great.
Yeah, I definitely think the knock against this game is that it feels like it maybe should have been a downloadable title. It does have quite a lot of content in it, but I don't know. It just, as a retail release, it doesn't stand out
It
particularly.
had more content than I thought it was going to after everyone was like jumping on its back for not having enough
Yeah,
content. I was like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I've played this for like 15 hours or something, I think. But
Totally,
yeah.
yeah. And also like that idea of the 3DS with those kind of puzzle boxes and having
Mm,
perspective be much more obvious. Certainly there were moments, playing on Wii U where it was a little tricky, and I think it would have benefited from the stereoscopic, much like
yeah.
3D Land really benefited from it. But yeah, it's a good thing to see Nintendo take this kind of little idea that they had and then expand it out. And I think there are a lot of games and kind of segments of games that they can continue to do that with. I'm just not sure that it's a viable market for them to make these like retail releases. I think that they need to be a little more bold in saying we can have a $15 eShop game that stars one of our main characters and not be sheepish about it. And I think they were just a little reticent, not only because it's a big character, but also because they don't have that much in the retail space otherwise, and they needed to make it look like their lineup was a bit beefier.
Yeah.
So,
And this was another game that was announced at that 2014 E3.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was, yeah.
So yeah, cool game. Right,
All right.
it's getting tough, Emmys.
I
Am I going to throw my toys out the pram with the
I think
next
you
thing
might,
you're going to say?
maybe. Oh boy. I am going to cut Gum and Clive 2. Are you okay with that, Ballet?
I am.
Okay. I really, really love the Gum and Clive games. They're so simple and short and delightful, but I don't think they do anything particularly crazy. Like, they are very, along the line. I do think Gum and Clive 2 actually surprised me many times. Like, the segments which were like Star Fox, and then some of the bosses, especially the final boss, which is really cool, like in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. And like that panda segment, which was a little bit frustrating at times, but definitely switches the gameplay up. For such a short experience, condensed down, that he really does fit a lot in there and changes up the mechanics as much as possible. But I just don't think scope wise it's able to stand against some of these other games, unfortunately.
I don't know if maybe scope's the right word, because I want to make it really clear that this game is not getting removed because it's small or short in any way or simplistic.
Right, absolutely.
And like, I really want to emphasize, because there is another game that is standing out on this list higher up, that simplicity done well can beat any top tier AAA game in
Right.
my mind. And like, that's not why this game is going. It's just because there are some other fantastic games on this list. And
Yes, 100%.
like, yeah, Gum and Clive 2 is just an absolute great game. I was lucky enough to play both of them back to back for the first time, 1 and 2, and
Yeah.
oh, it was so much fun just to like play on the tube.
I think
in London.
satisfying is a good word for Gum and Clive.
Really
like,
satisfying.
really just bite-sized, satisfying chunks of video game, in its purest form, really.
It's
So,
really pure, and that's what's so great about it.
awesome. Well, great nod to that. Love Gum and Clive too. Bali, what are we doing now? We're down to... Okay, so do you want to read out what we have left?
We got 7 games left.
Okay.
So we got Box Boy, Triforce Heroes, Codename Steam, Splatoon, Super Mario Maker, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows.
Okay, it's your turn to
We
cut.
can maybe stop cutting and start nominating for top 5.
I think there's a game that can be cut here.
Oh boy. I'm hoping you're thinking the one I'm thinking of. Because I've got my top ones I want,
Okay.
and this is not making it, but I absolutely love this game, and so I'm gonna cut Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows.
Yes, 100%. That's what I was
Okay,
thinking.
cool. It really shocked me how much I enjoyed this game. Like, it really shocked me. I was not pumped at all, like, for the Shovel Knight DLC. I like knew about it. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, sure. I'm sure I'll try that out. And then when it came, I just like got reabsorbed by Shovel Knight and like played the whole thing in like a few days.
It also came out at a really bad time because I believe Mario Maker also dropped pretty much when Plague of Shadows came out.
Yeah,
And
like
it got
if you're
lost
wondering,
in
yeah,
the stuff a bit.
if you're wondering why I've made so few Super Mario Maker stages, this game is a big factor in that.
Probably,
like
yeah.
a really big one. Because I remember they both came out, and I remember you playing a lot more Mario Maker, and I was playing a lot more Plague of Shadows.
Right.
And it just sort of clashed. And yeah, but wow, it is a unique twist on 2D platforming that I absolutely loved. the way that Plague Knight handles, the way that all the bosses feel different. Everything you do in that game just feels different, and I love the idea that you can customize it and find what suits you best.
Right, there's a lot of kind of personality in like choosing all the component parts of your bombs, in the sense that like you will find a set of things that works for you, and like someone else will not probably use that exact same combination, but you will find the perfect thing for you, and you'll continue to stick with that, I think, a lot of the time. And we both took very different tacks throughout this whole game, but we both kind of made our way through it still.
Mm. Yeah, it's fantastic, absolutely. And I'm now really excited about the next DLC.
Yeah, they have they have a lot to live up to now. And I'm really unsure as to how much I'll enjoy those, because it's fine retreading the same levels one time now with the new character. I don't know if continuing to do these same levels again and again with different characters can be differentiated enough. Like, the unfortunate thing is that they've now committed from the Kickstarter to doing those things, and I personally would much rather they move on to a second game and make those characters playable in different levels. But I understand that they kind of have to stick to what they've promised. But we'll see. They've really set the set the bar high for themselves with Plague of Shadows.
Yeah.
So, totally. So we're down to 6, Bally.
This is big. This
is almost impossible, and I think there's one that I would cut, and there's one that you would cut, and I think the other 4 that we're pretty solid on. I would personally want to get rid of Triforce Heroes, and I know that you don't want to. I understand why, but I think that there is enough bad about Triforce Heroes that really fucking pissed me off, that despite all the amazing moments, it drags it down for me.
I think it was some of the best moments in gaming I had this year. Like by like not a long way, but like when we were playing co-op online together and we absolutely nailed like a really tough boss or a puzzle, like it was just an unbelievably amazing feeling.
It was fun, yes, but when I think about it,
I enjoyed those moments more than you.
You did, totally. But when I think about it, the first 4 worlds of that game are such a snooze fest. Like, the levels are
they're
not
just warming you up.
I know, but like, it takes too long. It takes
Also,
way too long to warm you up, and they're not very interesting puzzle-wise. The only things that stand out are the bosses in those segments, and it takes too long to get to the good stuff. World 5 is a fucking pain in the arse in the levels, and they're more frustrating than fun, I would argue, with a lot of that stuff where you can't fucking communicate, being able to go across the platforms that bob back and forth. The end game is fantastic and excellent, but there's not enough of it, is my problem. And they pad it out with the bonus challenge shit, which is such a pain in the arse to do unless you have a dedicated amount of people. My point being is that yes, there is fucking fantastic things in there, but those fucking fantastic things are almost diamonds in a haystack. Like, because the online is a bloody pain in the arse. It's just shit in so many ways. It locks you out from fucking playing with other people across the world. We wanted to play with, like, John from the Nintendo Show, but we couldn't do that ever because of this region locking bullshit. And even if it works, exactly, even if it does work, you get someone who's trolling you, you have to duck out. You get someone who has a bad connection, you have to duck out. And every fucking time you duck out, you have to restart from the very beginning, click through the same dialogue, which doesn't go any faster, you can't skip through it. It's just... I totally agree. Some of the best moments this year, but there are also some of the fucking worst, like really fucking bad, that I was so annoyed by. So I can't with good conscience put it in a top 5. I'm sorry. It's just... I can't do it.
Well, this isn't so much about Triforce Heroes. This is about Triforce Heroes versus Codename Steam, right?
Exactly, yes.
So let's hear a bit about Codename Steam.
So Codename Steam is a game that everyone panned. Everyone across the board said there are a lot of problems with this and that they really didn't enjoy it. And I was getting it because it was a cheap price, and I thought, might as well take a risk on this now while it's cheap, because I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it that much. And the way that that game builds itself up and the way that you feel when you triumph is a feeling like no other I've ever had. It is an intensely tough game, but I also think it's fair. I think that there are a lot of things that were a bit overblown about certain aspects, where, some of the shots weren't hitting when you were supposed to. And yes, that is a problem, but the game gives you really good checkpointing. It allows you to save frequently throughout the maps. You can use your gold to pay for your whole party to be healed and revived if you lose someone. And throughout the game, I only restarted a map from the very beginning, like once. There was only one time I had to do that. The rest of the time, I could restart from a checkpoint. I would, know where enemies were, so I was a bit more aware. And there is a thrill to that game that there's something around the corner that you don't know what it is, and you have to kind of play defensively and be patient, but then there's also the threat of stuff behind you which pushes you forward. There is an intensity and a joy to Codename Steam that I thoroughly loved, and it has flaws, but I think Triforce Heroes has more flaws in my book. And I think that Codename Steam is a stronger gameplay experience from start to finish, as opposed to Triforce Heroes, which I feel is weak at the start and has problems as you go through. Codename Steam is... I am perfectly fine with it being number 5 on this list. That is as high as I will go with it. But for me personally, as a game that stood out and did something different and was a bold move from Intelligent Systems, which unfortunately, because it has not sold well, I don't think we're going to get another one. I think if they did a sequel to this game and fine-tuned some aspects, it could be one of my favourite games of all time. Like, I really, really loved it. And that is an intense thing that I have for it, which is far greater than Triforce Heroes. So... that's my pitch for Codename Steam.
That's quite a good pitch. I mean,
and I think that you do know that there are elements that you will love about this game because you played the demo for it, Bally.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the demo. I think I am definitely scared of the flaws. And
so was I. I was scared of the flaws as well, but I do think the idea of having those frequent save points really saves the game for me. Like, you can try and play it hardcore, and a lot of people on NeoGAF is like, oh, if you're reviving characters, that's not the real way. And I'm like, fuck you. No, this game is hard, and you need to use that stuff, and you need to, take advantage of everything the game gives you. And if you do that, and also if you do the thing which I did, which was... before the map, it gives you an option to say pre-select the characters that are best suited for this. Not only does that give you like a huge diversification to use characters that you personally probably wouldn't use otherwise, but it also helps you before even knowing what you're going up against by having the right characters with you. So there are things that I think, because this released early in North America and it didn't have the patch which sped things up, and it didn't have some elements that they added in later, which really, really helped. Because Europe got it later, and because I played it in a much better state, it had a bigger impact on me. I think if I had played it pre-patch without that sped up turns, I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now. But because we have, it changes it a huge amount for me.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
I'm not okay with it. I think it's a real shame that Triforce Heroes wouldn't make it, considering it's like some of the best gaming experiences we've had this year.
It is a shame.
Like, it's hard to weigh up consistency versus peaks and troughs. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But
my other argument here is that we've had another multiplayer experience this year that I think is better. And I think that if we have that representation of us playing something together this year, I feel that Splatoon is a better representation of that than Triforce Heroes is. So if you're going to make the argument that, yeah, it's a good thing because we both played it, there's another game here which did that too.
Yeah, that is true. And Splatoon is, definitely going to be high.
Yeah. I think interesting as well because I think both of these games were critically panned. Like, not many people liked Triforce Heroes that much, And Codename Steam was like across the board, people hated it.
I understood the criticisms of Codename Steam a lot more than the criticisms of Triforce Heroes.
I think people for Triforce Heroes were coming at it from the perspective of it being a Zelda game, and it was in elements, but it's not like a traditional Zelda, and so I think a lot of people just shoved it to the side because of that and didn't give it the time of day. And also, I think that's probably to its detriment is the fact that it doesn't have a strong opening, and it's a slow opening to get to the good stuff. Like Giant Bomb was saying, Dan was like, all the puzzles are just, totem, and that's it. And because he never got...
But you've just not experienced...
Right, because he never got deeper into it because the game didn't excite him enough to keep him playing to get to that stuff. And so I think that might be a thing that holds it back for other people. Of course, we're not talking about other people. I'm just bringing up the fact that both these games weren't well received by anyone, really. But we both found things to like about them, and we both really enjoyed them.
Like, what would you see as the flaws in Codename Steam?
I see some stuff when it comes to targeting enemies can be a little annoying because the way it works is animation windows or animations will continually be taking place. So imagine like there's this really small alien that's like a fly that's hovering in the air and it's constantly bobbing up and down, and you need to have your gun basically go off at the perfect time so that it hits it at the right spot, and sometimes it feels like it's way harder to do that than it should be, and it feels like sometimes it can blow up in your face. But really, for me, that's like one of the only things. It's definitely really hard, and I think that's to its benefit. Like, I know a lot of people got frustrated by it, but it feels much more like an accomplishment and an achievement for you being able to beat those levels. And I think they're very, very beatable. Like, I don't think that they're impossible tasks that they're setting you. And it's all about playing the objective as well. Like, there is no rhyme or reason to kill all the enemies on the map because there's no experience being gained or anything. You're just trying to clear a path. Like, you need to focus on the objective and just do that. And when I did that, the game just became really great. And,
see, when you describe it like that, it's sounding like Advance Wars.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, there's no experience, it's just about fulfilling that task.
Yes, exactly.
And, like, it's a strategic... Because, I mean, I feel like there's more ways to skin a cat with a game like Fire Emblem, because it's all about, giving some experience to lesser units, that sort of thing, and yeah.
Exactly, and that's the thing. You don't need to worry about that. Like, there are and also all the characters are so diverse and different, and it's always fun to get a new character because they do a completely interesting thing, and they have a different weapon that I've never even considered of before. So,
I think I'm convinced, but I'll be pretty gutted if I play this game next year. It's just crap.
Are we going to retroactively come back?
No, we're not going to retroactively.
No.
But
of course not.
I'm skeptical, and I'm gonna need something in return.
Oh boy!
I've got an idea. But,
okay.
But
okay.
So I guess 6 is gonna be Triforce Heroes, and Codename Steam is not getting any higher than 5.
It isn't. I will happily have it at number 5, and it can stay there. Perfect with me.
Right. Well, there you go.
So here we are, the top 4, Bali. What are our 4 games that we're going to be talking about?
They are Box Boy, Splatoon, Mario Maker, and Xenoblade Chronicles X.
All right. I think the default answer for number 4 would be Box Boy. But I think that there is an argument to be made with Splatoon and Box Boy, or Xenoblade as potential.
Throwing it all in here. Let's hear what you have to say, then I'll say what I have to say.
So I think Box Boy is one of the most flawless games this year. I think
that's true.
It does the task of achieving an incredible gameplay system that is deep and builds on itself and continues to give you more and more. And when you take this in comparison to something like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, it just proves the argument that it doesn't fucking matter what the game looks like. If a game has solid mechanics and plays well, then no one gives a shit, because Box Boy has the most simplistic aesthetic of anything released this year. It is literally a thing that a 5-year-old could draw on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter, because the purpose of the game isn't centered around what it looks like. It's centered around the design and the puzzles and the way that you solve them. And this is a game that went on far longer than I expected it to. It had so much more to offer, and was only fucking like £5. It was one of the best price to value propositions the entire year, and really surprised me with how much I liked it, and to the extent that both of us 100%ed the entire thing.
In a very short space of time.
In a very short space of time. And we didn't have guides on the internet to help us either. Like, we had to knock our heads against walls a lot of the time to figure that stuff out. And yet we stuck with it. We still played that game a lot.
I agree with everything you've said, and I'm going to focus on one part that you talk about a lot.
Yeah.
And that's mechanics.
Yes.
And you've already praised how amazing, and this was the debate that we had with Super Mario Galaxy 2
Absolutely.
versus Wind Waker.
Yes.
So I'm going to throw it back on you and say Box Boy needs to be high on this list because it is so mechanically sound. And it's that phrase we used before as well. It does what it's trying to do incredibly well. Like, there's better than most games on this list in terms of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we've talked about Box Boy.
Yeah.
So we talk about the others and then we'll get a position, or shall we try and position Box Boy?
No, that's not. Let's talk a little bit about the others.
Right. You threw Splatoon and Xenoblade in there.
Yeah.
Go for one of those. Let's hear about it.
I think if we're comparing mechanics, I think Splatoon is the other game this year that stands out as being the most mechanically solid. Mario Maker is great, but it's just Mario. We know what Mario is. That's an entity unto itself. And I don't think the things that make Mario Maker great are necessarily the mechanics of Mario. And I think it's the tool set of making things which make that game great.
But you can also argue that if you're looking at mechanics and the way a game is designed, that Mario Maker is flawed partly in the way that you search for levels.
Right.
And things
I
like
mean,
that.
they actually have fixed that now, so
They
potentially we don't need to argue that point.
Would you
as
say,
much.
I've not looked into it enough, but would you say fixed, or would you say improved? Or
I would say improved. I would say
improved.
fixed would be having that system on the Wii U itself.
But
certainly this makes it way easier. Like, Jeff Gersman was just tweeting the other day, like, hey, I did a new level, and he links straight to the bookmark page, and you literally click one button, and it will pop up on your Wii U. So it is a much cleaner way of doing things, for sure.
And you mentioned Splatoon and mechanics.
Yes.
And
I think my first impression of Splatoon is one of the most positive mechanical experiences I've ever had in my life.
But it's so innovative
as well. That system of shooting the ink and sliding straight through it, popping up, it is so fluid. It is incredibly fluid and so much fun to execute. And I think that from that standpoint, not only is it driving forward an innovation and creating practically a new genre, but it feels incredible to play as well. So those are my things. Splatoon, I think, has a lot of good things about it. I think the thing that brings Splatoon down is I wasn't a huge fan of the single player. I know you liked it more than I did.
Yeah, I
think it's a good single player. I just don't think it did enough interesting for me.
It's not one of the best final bosses of all time.
I fucking hate that final boss. I fucking hate it. I think I think it's elongated bullshit, and it should have been over 2 phases early, and it just stretches out way longer than it needs to.
It is a little bit too long, I completely agree, but I absolutely love that final boss. But we've definitely had this debate already, so maybe not regurgitate. Where on earth are we going to put Xenoblade Chronicles X?
Bali, I don't know. Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Do you know where I want Xenoblade Chronicles X? Am I gonna say a position, or shall we talk about it a bit first?
Let's talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so I think it's. I've already talked about it on the show, for goodness sake. So yeah, like I've already said, this show exploration. I don't think I've ever had. The last time I felt, oh my god, this is an open world, I feel amazing and free and want to explore and do stuff, was Assassin's Creed 4. And we've harped on about how few open world games I've played, so maybe that's not the best area to just be like, wow, it's amazing for this reason.
I mean, what about Wind Waker? That's probably one
Yeah,
you would
no,
compare
Wind
it
Waker, and I compared Assassin's Creed 4 to Wind Waker.
to. Right.
And I think in terms, Wind Waker's so different, and so is Assassin's Creed in many ways because it is island based. And yes, of course,
Yes.
there are islands in this game, but you are mainly on land, and like that feeling of running across a plain and it feels so much more three-dimensional than Chronicles. And
Yeah.
it's that feeling of running across plain, seeing the sunset, and it just looks incredible. And I just feel myself really not wanting to go back to New LA. Like, New LA feels like such a chore, and it's mechanics heavy, and it's text, and it's, scrolling through menus, getting the weapon. It feels dull and dry and grindy and annoying. But then the second you're out exploring and it's like, oh, you have to find this point. Like, I love the missions where it's like, here's a point on the map. You have to find out how to get there. And you have to do that, obviously, for the probes, but that feeling is so good. Like, it is so
fucking
good.
amazing, and
Like,
it only gets better when you get the Skell. Bally, when you get to fly in that thing, holy fucking shit!
I'm gonna go play some Xenoblade right now. I'm sorry, right? I probably
Yeah, no, I know. Like, and that is the thing. Like, it is my favorite open world I have ever been in.
Yes.
Like,
and you've been in way more than me.
Yeah, no fucking competition. Like, I feel so at home and comfortable there, and I think, like, the problem with something like Witcher is because it's more action-based in terms of combat, I feel like I need to be more invested there. Like, I feel like it's much more on my shoulders to be able to beat the enemy. Whereas in Xenoblade, like, you can get away from enemies much more easily, and even if you die, like, there's not a real, like, negative to it. You just go back to the last, like, checkpoint. Like, there never feels too much of a threat to me, and it's just a joy to run around. It doesn't feel like anything's holding me back, you know?
But to go back to talk about exploration, and I think the reason, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so correct me if this isn't the case, but I think the reason it's your favorite, like, open world experience, blah blah blah, is that games like Witcher, Skyrim, even the new Zelda, and I think they said this on RFN, so they're all based on, real landscapes. So
Right.
whether it's cliffs, forests, ice places, whatever. Xenoblade is so sci-fi and fictional that its open world just has the most crazy landforms that are so unpredictable and strange, and it really does feel a lot like Star Wars in so many ways.
Like, it feels familiar and alien simultaneously. Like, you think about Primordia and those rooftop areas that have these tendrils coming down. Like, the architecture is just fucking gorgeous. Like, it's so stunning to look at. And, like, when you get the ability to fly on top and, like, take a view from there, and, like, I took a picture of me standing on the massive ice crystal that sticks out of New LA, like, holy shit. It's just... And I know that is one aspect of the game, but that aspect is so fucking impressive that it kind of defies belief, you know?
And to the credit of the game, they really do focus a lot of the game around that aspect.
Yeah.
And it feels, there's no linearity as well. Like, Chronicles is so linear. If you just follow that story, you're just going from A to B to A to B to whatever, and you're following the story. Yes, you can explore each area. Yes, it feels great, but it doesn't feel anything like as good as this game in terms of...
Well, what I will say to the benefit of the original Xenoblade is that it's always a surprise to me. And I think the unfortunate thing about this game is that I knew what all the areas were before going into it because of marketing material and stuff. They're like, there are 5 continents, there are these.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks a little bit of the joy of discovery.
It's because we were waiting so long for this game that the amount of marketing was massive.
Right, partially that. But I think even with that being the case, there are moments of finding places in this game that are just fucking jaw-dropping. Like, you get to Oblivia and you see that massive ring that's like half a thing that's dug into the ground. You can see it from fucking miles away. You can see the ring from Primordia from certain areas. And you get to it and you can just like run all the way to the top. And it's like, there's no restriction, there's no boundary. Like, legitimately, if you can see it, you can fucking go there. And that's the promise they have with Zelda, promise a lot of open world games have, but I think Xenoblade, above any other game, lets you do that. Like, The Witcher has a lot of, buildings and stuff, and there are rooftops, but the game doesn't necessarily give you the tools to get on top of those. Like, you can maybe jank your way up there if you try, but Geralt is just a dude, he doesn't have any crazy abilities. Whereas having the Skell, you can literally just walk on any terrain, like anything, and it doesn't care. The game lets you do it. It just straight up says, fine, whatever, you can go here. Like, we don't care. And, like, that freedom is amazing. And now I don't know what to do, Bally, because I think Xenoblade needs to be high.
Shall we start talking about some positions?
Sure. What are your feelings right now? How do you feel about the position of Box Boy versus a Splatoon or a Xenoblade or a Mario Maker? Because I feel like we may be giving Box Boy short shrift if we leave it at 4. But then I don't know what goes at 4. I feel like, yes, we could put Xenoblade at 4 because of its flaws and everything, but then also Xenoblade is just so fucking amazing that
Could Xenoblade be better?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Could Box Boy be better? Like Box Boy.
You're right. You're right.
Box Boy in terms of like, and this was what you said about like Mario Galaxy 2. Like, can you make a better 3D platformer than Super Mario Galaxy 2?
Yeah.
Maybe, but it'd be bloody tough. And like, could you make a better 2D puzzle platformer than Box Boy? I'd be more confident of saying no to that question than to Mario Galaxy 2. Like, I think there's less room for improvement on Box Boy than there is on Galaxy 2.
Yes, that's true. That's true, but
and I think there's an absolute wealth of improvement for Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, for me personally,
then we get down to the problem of scope, which is what Box Boy is going for is far less ambitious than what Xenoblade is going for. And by default, you are always going to trip up more going for something that is as crazy ambitious as Xenoblade
but
is.
You could say that...
Whereas distilling a puzzle platformer down, I feel, is an easier task. Despite the fact that they pull it off flawlessly, I feel like the bar that you have to hit is lower. And that's the problem.
I mean, you could say that Triforce Heroes was maybe biting off more than it could chew in terms of how to make a really streamlined online smooth experience where you meet up in a lobby, you go on a quest, and you refresh. Like, they fundamentally failed at that issue.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not as far into Xenoblade as you, obviously, but it's just... It's so hard to... I feel like the developers put so little effort in terms of gaming experience. They were obsessed with world creation above, how do I teach the gamer the player how to do this? How do they know where they need to be here and now? And I felt like they threw that idea out the window and just said, let's just make this. And that is ambitious. I completely agree. But for me, Xenoblade is 4.
It feels like the ambition that can be taken to the next level with a sequel.
And I think that's what, like, Game of the Years, the top 50 list we did, we are like, it's the absolute creme de la creme at the top.
Oh, I know. This is so hard to, like,
and I don't think
this
is the final Xenoblade game.
No, absolutely not. I think Takahashi, who's behind the series, said that for the next series entry, he wants it to be more story-based. And
that's great.
I think my final nail in the coffin of putting Xenoblade at number 4 would be, this story is nowhere near what Xenoblade Chronicles was. And that is a very high bar, I understand.
Yes.
But even amongst other games this year, Xenoblade is not a story that's engaged me at all. Like, there have been moments when I've been interested, but I don't care enough. The characters aren't as likable to me, and I don't think the voice acting is as good. And it's unfortunate, but that is a sticking point. And despite Xenoblade maybe having the highest highs for me of this entire year,
yeah,
it also has some of the lowest lows. And I think that's
some
an
of
argument.
Some of the lows on Triforce Heroes are pretty
Yes,
low.
exactly. No, yes. And I think that's also the argument I was making for Triforce Heroes, so I would be hypocritical if I didn't acknowledge the same for Xenoblade.
That's fair, and I'm glad you've seen that argument.
Yeah.
Good.
So
well,
I can put Xenoblade at 4.
I think we're going to put Xenoblade at 4 then. So yeah, number 5, Codename Steam. Number 4, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
And now we have 3 games.
3
games.
I
think Box Boy is good at number 3. I'll tell you why. I think Splatoon needs to be recognized for how much it pushes the industry forward.
Precisely.
I think that Splatoon is something that is a bold move by Nintendo by making a new IP. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
They could have easily gone with Mario Sunshine and just said, whatever, let's throw fucking Yoshi in here and have him vomit out juice. But they didn't. They went with new characters, a new concept, and they took a risk on it. And they marketed the hell out of it. They propositioned it towards kids and said, look at this cool thing on Nickelodeon. And the mechanics are some of the most creative, interesting, innovative things I have ever seen in this medium. And it's so impressive that they take a genre, and they do this again and again with so many different games. But for me, Splatoon is just one of the most impressive feats of doing that. Of saying, here's a shooter, let's completely flip it on its head and do something absolutely unique. And I think that alone is why it needs to be above Box Boy on this list.
I agree. And I think Splatoon and Mario Maker, which I'm sure we'll come to, they are not only, year defining, I think they're almost genre defining, they're generation defining.
Yes.
I might even argue. Box Boy, as amazing as it is, isn't in that tier.
Box Boy is a flawless game. Absolutely flawless. But it's not doing enough new to put it on the same level as those games.
3 is a good position for Box Boy, and it is criminal that we didn't put it on our top 50 games of all time.
Yeah, what? How did that happen?
I don't know what happened, but that will be remedied one day. That will be remedied because Box Boy is fantastic, and I hope they make an expansion, or not expansion, a sequel.
Totally.
More levels. I'd lap that up, but Box Boy number 3.
So here's the big one, Bally.
Yes.
Splatoon vs Mario Maker for number 1. We haven't really talked about Mario Maker yet.
We haven't. But I think that speaks for how we feel about it, really.
Maybe.
I think it is so good that it is like it is hard to talk about.
Now, maybe we should take a step back for a second, because I think a lot of what we love about Mario Maker might be a little tied up in stuff that we watch about Mario Maker. In the sense that the whole Dan Reichert, Patrick Klepek saga, the whole Giant Bomb stuff with Mario Maker, and all of that video content is maybe like growing this in our estimation as opposed to our personal playtime with the game. I don't know, and that's the thing I have to think about. Is that a negative? Is that a positive? How do you feel about that in terms of Mario Maker? Because all things said, you really haven't played a lot of Mario Maker. You've made a couple of levels and you've played some of it, but I don't think you have done as much Mario Maker as you've done of Splatoon.
No, I am more hooked on Splatoon. It is, if I had to play a game right now, pick up and play, listen to some podcasts, I would rather play Splatoon. Do I think Splatoon is better? Potentially not. And I've not got the Mario Maker bug in the same way you do, but
Bally, I literally Mario Maker is astonishing because if you'd asked me at the start of this year whether I cared about that game, I would have said I would have
We
just
hate
gone meh.
2D
I just would
Mario.
have been like, oh great. I mean, I don't want to make anything, so fucking whatever. Like it's just Mario, you know? Like, and then E3 happens and a light switch goes off, and
That I remember that moment
I'm
actually.
like, wait, like you can do
The
that?
the world championships. I think the whole world was kind of okay. We understood from the previous year's E3. Yeah, it was previous year because it was
Yes.
24. So in 2014 E3, where it
Yeah.
was revealed, we were like, okay, that looks great. We all kind of expected like we knew what it was. But the second you see like high level Mario players playing intricately designed, difficult courses
And
with
not just that, levels that just do fucking crazy shit that we have never seen in a Mario game before. And I think that
yeah,
was the problem before that was, in my mind, Mario Maker was a game where you made standard Mario levels that were in Mario games. And for me, those are not interesting. Those are not exciting. They're fine, but they've never stood out to me. It is when you have like three giant things on top of one another and
yeah.
this like Yoshi inside a clown car with a fire flower with a helmet, like all this ridiculous shit that I never knew was going to be a part of this game, and then they show us it and I'm like, oh my god, like you can do ridiculous stuff in here.
Mm.
And then it comes out and I literally lose 30 hours of my life in like the shortest span of time possible.
And
Like
it's
I just fell down a fucking hole making
but it's
levels.
so cool on so many levels because you spent like all that time making, for example, your Metroid stage, which is a great
Yes.
stage.
Bali
And
literally like for 9 hours straight. Like I don't think I ate a meal. Like I was so fucking into making this level. It was crazy.
but it's but and as much fun as that was, you were doing it because you wanted me to play it, you wanted others to play it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
played it. We were on Skype. I said like this is great, and then we had like a proper conversation about like level design.
Right.
And as much as we're into video games and we love Nintendo, we love loads of other games, like we don't often have a really long thought out conversation about game design
Right.
and how you actually create something. Mario Maker forces you down this route of saying, no, you're going to have to think about this. We're not going to hold your hand. You're going to have to think about how you stop that game being breakable. And we had a proper conversation about, yes, I like this bit level. I found this bit annoying, and like we were like raising and I made my first level Shell Shenanigans, and like you played that and you said, Bally, I hate this bit. I hate this bit.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
do this bit. I'm like, oh yeah, I never really thought of that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's just we're thinking about games in a completely different way, and there's no other game on this list that does that. Nothing.
No.
There's no other game, arguably. There's a couple I'm sure that make you think about it more, but there's no really other games that we've really got into that make you think about game design, and that is just such a cool, unique thing that really like we just absolutely like we talk on Skype a lot, and we just thoroughly enjoyed like a proper conversation about how to make a level better. And like I went back and I fixed my Shell Shenanigans course, and I tried to do different things, and like we are like almost improving each other as game designers through this game.
Right, it's like a multiplayer experience. It's like a collaborative thing, and I didn't think that would be an aspect of it before it came out. You know, that was like a surprise for me that we spent so much time like, and I think now we're not doing it as much because we want to kind of surprise each other with levels and make ones,
Yeah,
and then because really the second part of the joy of Mario Maker is watching other people. And I
exactly.
told you, like, there was a day when I just kind of sat there for like 4 hours on Twitch and just found random Twitch streamers to play my level because I wanted to see how people would tackle it.
Yeah,
It gives you that sense of like, oh boy, like people who make games really do like read reviews and things, don't they? And like search out every piece of information possible about their game because they're so invested in the creation of it that they want to know what people think. And I felt that intensely. Like having spent all that time making that one level, I really wanted to see how it would turn out. And I think, that's why it's taken hold of so many people in the industry, especially like from Giant Bomb, who have a huge platform and an audience and can make a level and be like, oh, there are loads of YouTube videos of people playing this level, I'm just going to watch them. Like Jeff Gersman has talked about being like on YouTube and just going through and seeing how people tackle his level and seeing if there are different ways to approach it that he never even thought of. And it's amazing, like, even in, constraining yourself and trying to put on boundaries and make people play it in a certain way, there'll always be someone who finds a little unique difference, a unique take on it. And that really shows you how challenging it is to design a level to be played in a specific way. It gives you so much more appreciation for how these kind of games are made. And, like, you think about it, and this is like one of the most simple genres of them all, the 2D platformer, and yet the amount you have to think about and consider for just one level is astonishing. Like, it really puts it into perspective for me.
I literally just last week got that thrill of, like, I'd not played Mario Maker in months, and then I was staying with Alex, like I said, and I booted up the Wii U, and I said, "Do you want to check out Mario Maker?" It's like, "Yeah, sure." And then I sort of said, "Here, try out my levels." And, like, I hadn't seen anyone, like, attempt my levels in ages.
Yeah.
And it was just so much fun just watching him die again and again on my level.
Is he good at Mario, or is he not great?
I know he listens to this show, so I need to be careful what I say. But I know he's not big on the 2D platformers. So
you said about Shovel Knight before about how, like, you impressed him with your Shovel Knight skills.
I impressed him with my Shovel Knight skills. Yeah. No, he's not a massive 2D platformer to my knowledge, so he's not incredible, but he definitely, I think, got a kick out of attempting my levels. And yeah, I just think it's going to be such a timeless game that we're just going to constantly be like, we should, like, make a date almost once a year where we say, right, I'm going to make a super tough level, you're going to make a super tough level, we're going to play each other's levels, and we're going to, like, it's just such a...
You can make a competition out of it, and that's the thing that we've loved, like, watching Patrick and Dan go back and forth, is, like, this... It's created, like, a genre of, like, YouTube videos, almost. Like, it's such an awesome, fun thing to be a part of, and I feel like that sense of community that Mario Maker has created is stronger than what Splatoon has done. And here's the thing, as much as Splatoon is innovative and incredible and amazing, I think that there are still areas that it can improve on. And I think as a first time out of the gate as a concept, it's incredible. But I think a second Splatoon game can raise the bar. And I know that Mario Maker could probably do the same, but I think from a base level, Mario Maker gets more right. And
both these games were out of the door at that 2014 E3.
Yes.
And Mario Maker left us like, yeah, it looks alright. Might not. We were even contemplating, like, not getting it. We might get it. Splatoon, we were so pumped, like, from that trailer, and, like, they explained the mechanics, and you become a squid, you go in the puddles, you squirt, whatever. We were pumped, and, like, the way that Mario Maker is just in our minds gradually, slowly but surely. Well, it's not even slowly but surely. Like you said, it was that moment at this year's E3 where it was like, boom, this is the kind of stuff you can do. We were just. That's. I think. It was a game of the year.
The biggest heel turn I've ever had on a game in my life. Like,
really?
Aside from Bayonetta 2, it is the biggest heel turn because Bayonetta 2 was a game that I wasn't really paying attention to. Like, I wasn't actively met on it. I played that demo and I was like, I'm pre-ordering this fucking game right now, Whereas Mario Maker, I was actively like, about it,
Yeah.
And I completely flipped, 100%. And I think that has, like, the history of this podcast is that we're not big fans of 2D Mario, and we don't hold them high in our estimation. And for a 2D Mario game to be in Game of the Year contention, let alone for number one, is so fucking impressive that I think we have to give it to it.
I think we do. And I think, I think we have been more in agreement than disagreement throughout this list, to be honest. So
totally. So is that it? Are we doing Splatoon at 2 and Mario Maker at 1?
I'd be happy with that.
All right, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is our top 5 Nintendo games of 2015. Holy shit, Bally! If you had
Shall we
asked me the
quickly
start
say
of the
them
year,
again?
if you'd said at the start of the year, hey, by the way, Xenoblade's going to be at number 4 and Mario's going to be at number 1, I would have laughed at you. I'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, yeah, that's a good one, yeah. But
Shall we
that's
quickly
what's
just
happened.
say the list again?
Yeah, Bally, please take us through the
Yes.
list from 5 to
Number
1.
5 was Codename Steam. Number 4, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Number 3, Box Boy. Number 2, Splatoon. Number 1, Super Mario Maker.
What a list!
Wow.
I'm really happy that I got Codename Steam on there personally.
I'm
Because
happy I got Box Boy above Xenoblade.
Yeah, I think despite you not having played Codename Steam,
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it.
for me, like, it's such a personal passion game. Like, I was really shocked when I got deeper into it that more people hadn't liked it as much. And there's this very small community on Gaff who are the same. There's the Codename Steam thread does not have many posts because not many people played it. But you go in there and those people are like, this is like the hidden gem of the year, and people are just not giving this enough attention because it really is a special thing. And it has its flaws and it has issues, which is why it's not like a number 1 game. But like for me, it's a personal thing that I really wanted to get on there. So glad that's there. And I think you made good arguments. I think we had a good discussion about Xenoblade versus Box Boy. And
Yeah, no, I think we did.
and I've played 55 hours of Xenoblade, and I still definitely feel that way. So it's fun to do this, but I think I enjoy doing this more than like just us having our personal list.
Definitely. Definitely.
Do you have your top 5 that you have personally?
Yeah, so my top 5 were exactly the same, but obviously Triforce Heroes was instead of Codename Steam.
Oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Did you have a top 5?
Not really. I kind of
Spoilers
it might
for
be spoiler
your
for my top 10 video.
your top 10 video.
But you'll see that probably
Yeah.
soon.
I will.
It's a similar order, I'll say. It's a similar order.
Cool.
So anyway, before we go, Bally, let's plug our things and plug our stuff and talk about everything revolving around end of the year stuff. Let's talk about the announcement. What are we announcing, Bally?
Doing a prize.
A prize giveaway, no less.
So, we are doing a prize giveaway of our number 4 game of the year, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yes.
Now, there's a caveat. Now, the caveat is that this is a European copy of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, this is where all the American listeners switch off.
Yeah.
But if you live in Europe, we
Or
are
UK.
or the UK, although the UK is in Europe, but you know what we mean.
You know what we mean, yeah.
So, what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of an iTunes push. Now, this isn't selling out, I promise. But all you have to do to enter is submit a review on iTunes and follow us on Twitter. So the Twitter account is at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. And all you do is you submit a review on iTunes and then you tweet at that account at TNL Podcast to tell us that you gave us a review. If the names between your Twitter account and the person who reviewed on iTunes are different, you must let us know. But that's all we ask. And then we are going to award our favourite review. The favourite review wins a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles X. And yeah, just get in contact with us and we will get that posted to you. So yeah.
Do we have a deadline for
this? We should
competition,
make a
Bally?
deadline. I think the deadline to enter, shall we say 1st of February?
Yeah, let's do that. We'll give you a month.
So you have a month. So we're going to record episode 57 next. That'll be our first episode of 2016.
Yes.
I think then we will have episode 58, and then I'm sure episode 59, I'm sure we'll have the winner.
Sure,
So
that sounds good.
We will let everyone know, keep you up to date with that, and good luck.
Indeed.
this. I don't know how often this is going to happen, but we're just trying
Well,
something
we
out.
got lucky because Bally somehow just got a free copy from Amazon, a second
did.
copy of Xenoblade.
I
So
did.
we're like, what do we do with this? Well, we should give it away to the
We
listeners.
should.
So.
We should. It was an obvious decision. The second I had an extra one,
Yeah.
it's got to go to the listeners. But
Absolutely.
yeah. What a year!
So yeah,
What a year!
what a year, Bally. It has
Highs and
been
lows.
a good fun time.
I mean, it has been a very tough year for Nintendo with Iwata and everything. But
Absolutely, yeah.
certainly, the highs have been hopefully made that ever so slightly less hard to take. But
Yeah, I think it's an exciting year in terms of the new stuff that we got, and I think it's exciting for the future of Nintendo. The fact that both Mario Maker and Splatoon, our top two games, were made by younger teams at Nintendo.
like a Nintendo shooter,
I know,
shooter.
but they were made by younger teams at Nintendo. It's kind of, the future of them going forward, the fact that there's less reliance on the Miyamotos of the world, and that we're getting these new developers who have fresh ideas and who are kind of pushing boundaries, and that, I think, is something to look forward to. So I'm really glad that, that those things came out, and they really made an impact on us, to be sure. So yeah. Anyway, Ballet, let's do a bit of plugs before we leave.
Yes.
Where can you find us on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. That is also my name on Miiverse. I'll be continuing to take lots of amazing screenshots of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Where can everyone find you, MBZ?
I am at Lordnbz on Twitter. Also my Miiverse page. Not too much going up at the moment because I'm in London and I'm away from my Wii U, but I'll be back in 2016 to finish off Xenoblade, hopefully, get that one cracked away, and ready to play some different games. I've got a bit of a hit list I want to go through for 2016, Bally. Which
too.
includes some old Final Fantasy games. After that whole Final Fantasy VII remake announcement, I thought I need to probably go back and play one of those. So that's going to be on there, and I'm sure there'll be some others. So a lot of good games from the past to talk about still in 2016. So I hope you guys will stick with us. And obviously there is the podcast Twitter account, which you need to take note of if you want to enter the competition, of course. What is that, Bally?
It's at TNL Podcast. That's at TNL Podcast. It's a great account to follow if you want all the latest updates on what we're doing and when the show comes out and, all that good stuff.
Yes. We should also mention, in terms of the competition, if you've already reviewed us on iTunes and you live in the UK and Europe and you want to be entered for Xenoblade, just tell us that you've already reviewed us and tell us who you were, which reviewer you were, and we'll get that all sorted. So even if you've been a good person and have already reviewed us on iTunes, then you can still be entered to win the copy. Don't want to leave anyone out here, Bally, of course.
Apart from everyone outside of Europe.
Apart from US people. Feel free, US people, to enter, but you probably will have a useless copy of Xenoblade unless for some reason you own a European Wii U.
We could maybe do an American competition in the future to match this, but no promises.
But we'll see.
No promises. So yeah, what a year. Oh, and one more time, the email address, ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That's ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. It'd be really great to get some predictions for 2016, Hopefully the NX coming out, fingers crossed, who knows?
Oh man, Bali, next year is going to be full of news for Nintendo. It's going to be a Nintendo year. They are the ones on the front lines with a new platform up ahead.
Do you think that might be their selling point? It's like, the year of Luigi is done.
Yes.
Now it is the year of Nintendo.
Yes, exactly.
They'll just go for it. But yeah,
they will indeed. There'll be a lot to talk about next year. So exciting things are afoot. Thanks, Bally, for joining me for another good year of the podcast.
Yes, this is our second full year.
Yeah,
second full year.
And,
on to the third. Third time lucky.
Yeah. Hopefully, do some more guests and stuff next year. Hopefully have a few more of those lined up. That'll be fun. And
hopefully pick up a few more listeners. That's always fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. And your iTunes reviews will help that. So even if you live in North America, hey, give us an iTunes review anyway. Why not? You might as well. It's Christmas. It's Christmas.
Spread the love.
Spread the love. So that's it. That's us for 2015. We'll be back in the new year with a bunch of new stuff, a bunch of new Nintendo talk, a bunch of video games. So thank you all for sticking with us, and we'll see you then. Goodbye. The musical interludes used in today's show were Sylvalum Field from Xenoblade Chronicles X, copyright Nintendo 2015, and a jazz remix of Windmill Hut from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time from OC Remix.